Welcome. I'm NBC Bay Area reporter and anchor Gia Vang here at San Jose's Vietnam town in the city's Little Saigon. Thank you for joining me for our special 50 years after the Fall of Saigon. Tonight we bring you a powerful collection of stories that only happened because of the Vietnam War, through the voices of those who lived it. We dive into the courage, the complexity, the lasting impact, and hope for the future. We begin with a harrowing story about a now Oakland business owner who, like millions of Vietnamese, went to the open waters to escape on a boat. Only he went twice.
So I go up here to put on the flag.
Thuan Le not only displays his flag, but he wears it. The flag once flew in South Vietnam, representing the anti-communist republic until the fall of Saigon in 1975. To Thuan, where he flies it over Oakland matters.
Little Saigon, yeah.
He's here now as the owner of Kim Viet, a jewelry store.
18 karat gold.
Thuan comes from a long line of jewelers from a small village near Saigon in Vietnam. When the communists captured the capital of the South, Thuan and his family knew they had to get out. At just 11 years old, he, his brother, and a relative found a boat much like this one. Escape alive was the goal.
From the Mekong River to the Ocean Gate, the mission was compromised.
Captured. Even as a kid, he was thrown in jail. But once out, Thuan would try again months later. This time he was 12, and all by himself on a rickety sugarcane boat. His parents, siblings, and relatives on different ones.
It's too risky. Yeah, you don't want to loot all your kids, so you have to separate them out.
And the natural metal his family had become so good at crafting meant the difference between life or death on the water.
Our boat got robbed 3 times by Thai pirate. They want to threat. They want to keep them go. They think we hide and go in the boat. Someone got shot at, ripped the arm off. Yeah, and they wanted behead one of the men on the boat.
The boat stripped of anything of value, and now Thuan had to stay alive. He remembers grasping an empty plastic jug tightly in case he and the rest of the 40 or so people went down with a sinking boat in storms.
So we survived on the whole time with a sugarcane. Actually, yeah. It was a very sad time. It was terrible.
7 treacherous days at sea on a tiny boat comes to an end. And then there's this photo. A young Thuan manages a smile on a sandy beach, a refugee camp in Malaysia. And from there, he says it all moved quickly. He was resettled with a distant relative.
I'm the first. My brother second. I make it to Canada 1980. My brother make it to United States 1981. When I live in Canada, the thing that missing the most is family.
It was 8 long years in Canada before he finally came to the East Bay to reunite with his family, including his parents who had also successfully escaped and had been sponsored by his brother. They had opened up the jewelry shop in the town with many Vietnamese as their neighbors.
I love this community. This is my family now. Oakland, my family now. And my dream always have a little Saigon in Oakland. We need to know our roots, why we are here in America. Very important to kids to know the truth about history, yeah, not by Google.
So he shares his history and flies the flag he honors.
We want to tell the mother of Vietnam, we are here, we're still here.
Right next to the Stars and Stripes.
I'm thankful for America.
The estimations are almost 2 million Vietnamese fled by boat, just like Thuan, with hundreds of thousands who disappeared or didn't make it. For those who did, many found communities just like this one. San Jose boasts the largest population of Vietnamese people in any city outside of the country of Vietnam. It's no wonder there's a district called Little Saigon here, one of the biggest in the nation. We sit down with a man who had the foresight to build all of this and learn about his ultimate dream for his community. You will get your steps in at San Jose's Vietnam town. It has more than 300 plus businesses, most of them Vietnamese owned. And we sat down at a pho restaurant with a man who says he knew exactly what he wanted to build.
I have a visa.
Yeah.
I have a visa.
But Lap Tang, or Mr. Tang, as people in the community call him, was not always a developer. In Vietnam, with his wife and daughter, he was a national police captain until April 30th, 1975.
April 30th, On the day that Saigon fall, we ran and end up in the ocean. We ran away, we don't know where to go, but we end up in the ocean.
Drifting on a fishing boat until they ended up in Singapore and got sent to the Philippines on a bigger boat and then sponsored to come to the U.S. They landed in Southern California.
They sent us there, and then they found a church to sponsor us. Also go to Orange County. We stay in Orange County. So I do 3 jobs actually. From 4 o'clock in the morning, I went to register the Orange County Register and to pick up the newspaper and deliver newspaper. And then at 7 o'clock, I go to work at the assembly. And then at 4 o'clock, I start to work in the school until 11 o'clock.
As a school custodian, but then Mr. Tang learned San Jose was budding with opportunities in electronics and went to find greener pastures.
Instead of working at the electronic company, I opened a movie theater. I contact with the TV station in Hong Kong and Taiwan to buy the copyright, to sign the contract to buy the copyright, to dub into Vietnamese language. So I have the exclusive right to dub all their TV program into Vietnamese to sell all over the world.
Our bowls of pho arrive, and Mr. Tang argues
I think we do even better.
that it tastes better here than in Vietnam. His successful dubbing business was in downtown San Jose, and by the 80s there were many Vietnamese businesses there. But safety was a concern, so Mr. Tang decided he'd move and take anyone who wanted to go with him.
Many people already opened small shop, so I told them that I built something here so we can come together.
He found the property here at McLaughlin Avenue and Story Road.
I decided to buy the property, to try to develop into a Vietnamese center.
With partners and bank loans, they broke ground on construction. Grand Century Mall opened in 2000, filling up quickly.
The Vietnamese people who come here, they like to do business. They like to open something, like to do something. I tell them that they come together, come here. If you don't have the money to pay the deposit or something, you can come in and do business, and then you don't have to pay deposit. Just open the business.
They're here now and have dramatically changed the fabric of the corridor. But today, with shifts in how people shop, Mr. Tang is looking to evolve too. And what would that look like exactly? The man with a vision always has a plan.
Tear down everything and then I build brand new individual store. I want except them when they do the business, they own their own property.
Mr. Tang says he's Buddhist and doesn't need much. He just wants his Vietnamese community with backstories like his to have their peace.
I want every single business people come here. They own that we see said a piece of American pie.
We also now know how the wider Southeast Asia region was impacted and the other groups of people outside of Vietnam that secretly helped the U.S. government and whose lives were uprooted to the Bay Area in the aftermath.
All right, so here is kind of where we have all the home stuff and photos and informational things that I've dug up with my parents.
Inside this Bernal Heights home in San Francisco, old photos and documents of Tu Pho Vang's family are spread out on a coffee table.
This is the immigration paperwork originally coming over, copies of those.
So you guys came in 76, right?
76, yep.
So, what do you make of this kid right there?
Looks miserable. Yeah, he looks like he's not having a good time.
Yep.
Yeah.
His life's about to change.
Yeah.
Tu Pho came to the U.S. when he was 3 years old. How he got here
to be evacuated
starts during the Vietnam War. As it raged on, there were also proxy wars, secret wars backed by the U.S. and neighboring countries like Cambodia and Laos. Laos is where Tu Pho's father Hoa and his mother Su Zhang were. We spent time with them at their Central Valley home they moved to last year. Hoa is now 78 years old, but as a teen, he, along with about 50,000 other Hmong boys and men, were recruited in a covert CIA operation to slow down and halt communist expansion, one way by disrupting the supply of weapons along the Ho Chi Minh Trail.
My work as a captain was on the front lines, but we were in planes. I was video recording the fighting. Then we'd bring it back to the military leaders for review.
Sue and other women and children were left at the U.S. and Hmong military base in Longjiang, a mighty challenge to keep whatever sense of normalcy they could.
Every day or two, they'd truck bodies into the camp. So during those times, you're worried sick it could be one of your loved ones.
In 1973, the U.S. withdrew from their covert operations, and when Saigon fell 2 years later, there was a chaotic, mad rush to get out of Laos for thousands of Hmong families like Waz.
We're all clamoring in the crowd, trying to figure out how we get on the flight to Thailand. God listened to our prayers, and the plane's trunk opened up right in front of our family.
It's stories like this that UC Davis professor Q-Ling Caroline Valverde is exploring. She runs a new Vietnam Studies initiative.
There was a calling for a center that look at contemporary Vietnam issues, and in particularly what interests the next generation, like the youth. What do they find important? Ordinances that have killed, hundreds of thousands after the war, and young people, etc. Yes, that's a huge problem. Or the dioxins that were also with Agent Orange spread throughout, and that, again, not just in Vietnam, but also in Laos.
When it comes to bombs, it's debated the U.S. dropped more bombs in Cambodia than previously thought. Humanitarian organizations like Mines Advisory Group, or MAG, says there's still an average of 1 death or injury a week there from ordnance that didn't detonate. Teams are still working to clear them in Cambodia and in Laos. More than 2 million tons of ordnance were dropped in Laos, equivalent to about a plane load of bombs every 8 minutes for 9 years.
These are the nuances that, I think when we think about the 50th anniversary, we should unearth a lot of this information that's contemporary, but also archival.
Kathy Chow Rothberg's story is full of nuance. She's a refugee.
I am of Umian descent.
Part of another hill tribe from Laos, Kathy is now the executive director of Lao Family Community Development in Oakland, around since the late 70s.
But initially it was just a group of family and friends who all were displaced as a result of the Vietnam War, and the country of Laos and the tribal people, the mountain people like the Mien, the Hmong, and the Lao, the La, the Khmer, and their interactions and support of the U.S. government. So when many of us arrived here to the Bay Area, it started as a way for families to support each other, and how to rent a place, how to take the bus, go to the grocery store.
LFCD now serves 31,000 people a year in 35 different languages.
Is what has been effective for refugees. It's been effective for single moms and dads on welfare. It's been effective for individuals with disabilities. It's been effective for individuals who are formerly incarcerated, and how to lift people up, give them the skills and the value, the thinking, the connections, so that they can support themselves.
It's an organization Wah has had a hand in. Today, his life is much quieter. He's retired, with memories of his and Sue's journey all around them. But they look forward to the continued transformation of these communities, including their own.
Coming to America, we started our story anew. The old, the young. We persevered. Now, in just 50 years, we have reached the American dream.
A far cry from the family who arrived with just $500 each given to them by the U.S. government.
This is my dad at his work, I think one of his holiday parties.
Back at Tu Pho's home, he wants his parents to know he recognizes their resilience.
Just to reset and start all over again in an environment where they don't speak a word of the language over here, is quite impressive,
The end of the war gave rise to the brutal communist regime in Cambodia, the Khmer Rouge, which is estimated to have led to the deaths of more than 2 million people in Cambodia. It's also the reason so many Cambodians fled and now call the Bay Area home. California has some of the largest populations of Cambodian people in the U.S. Our next story brings us face to face with the experience of Bay Area Vietnam veterans who carry the weight of war long after they came home and now spend their lives trying to help other veterans. Ron Perez, a combat medic. Michael Blecker, an Army infantryman. Del Seymour, a helicopter evac medic. Paul Cox, a Marine. All are Vietnam veterans. Just a show of hands, how many were drafted?
I wanted to be as far away from anything Army or military as I possibly could.
I had my draft notice, which made the decision for me, but then I went and joined the Marine Corps.
I did enlist. I was thinking it would be a way I could get out of Reading, PA.
I disliked my neighbor more than I disliked anyone in Southeast Asia. That day they took everybody. I felt like just a number.
What was the reality when you arrived in your respective areas?
I got on this helicopter and flew down to what turned out to be the Mekong Delta, and a helicopter was there waiting to meet me. And I said, "Where's the hospital?" And they said, "You're here in time to help us build the aid station."
People were straggling. You know, there was somebody had malaria, so everyone had to like carry his stuff.
It scared the heck out of me. I was terrified. I wanted to go back home right there.
We captured 2 North Vietnamese soldiers, and I was part of that event. It was the day after I got there, practically. But it didn't cause me to question the war at all, that 10 months, because it was us against the North Vietnamese invaders, like LBJ said. It was later when I went south around Da Nang that I got to see a much different war. I got to see how we treated our allies, the Vietnamese people. We were driving people off the land. We were destroying their villages. And
we were feared by everybody that we saw.
I mean, had you guys known that there was so much dissent in this country for what was happening over there?
I was aware of it, and one of the first things I did was signed up for Vietnam Veterans Against the War.
It was the end of an era in all of our lives. You know, and the Vietnamese stood up and kicked the foreigners out.
More than 58,000 American troops were killed. The number of total casualties have been estimated at more than 3 million. When these men came back to the U.S.,
I had the double whammy of being a black Vietnam vet.
So you were what, trying to apply for jobs, and people learned that you were a Vietnam vet?
Right. They figured, where's your M16? Is it under your bed or in your car? Because of all the stories that we were crazy, we were baby killers.
On top of that, the vets were dealing with their own trauma. Ron shares what happened when he was on a jungle boat ride at a major theme park.
All of a sudden, the captain yells, "Ambush!" starts firing his gun, and people jump out of the bush. I jumped out. And I said, "Where is my weapon?"
You're talking about PTSD right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you even know what that was about?
No.
It sounds like there was a through line, though, from all you talking about finding other veterans who were like-minded. I mean, can you talk about how critical that piece was when you
They
came
were
home?
the only ones that could understand and relate to what was going on.
We were like looking at each other and thinking, boy, there's vets need a lot of help. We were living really ourselves, right? We were living self-destructive lives, and we needed to take care of ourselves like medics, you know.
That led some of them to start, all of them to get involved in some capacity with the nonprofit Swords to Plowshares. Since 1974, it has helped nearly 3,000 homeless, low-income, and at-risk Bay Area veterans every year, including one in this room.
I walked in that door at Swords to Plowshares 34 years ago with a shopping cart chained up outside. They were able to help me get my home, help me. The first key after being homeless for 18 years, the first key in my hand was handed to me at Swords. I went in that room, fell out on the floor in tears, that I finally have a place to live.
We sort of built one layer of care after another.
But this group says as they look ahead, they worry about care for veterans.
So there's 18 million veterans alive in the United States, and 9 million of those veterans are enrolled in the Veterans Administration. And most of those are older, sicker, poorer than the average population. And the VA, which provides medical assistance and benefits to those veterans, is under tremendous threat.
That's one of their focuses now as they reflect on 50 years later.
What did America learn from Vietnam? Not a damn thing, because we're still doing it.
I'm really worried about the direction that our government is going.
The cost of war isn't just what happens to us veterans, isn't what just happens to our country, it's the damage we do in other countries.
The cost of war is so, it's just so it's there, it's generational after generation.
Under the Trump administration, the Department of Veterans Affairs is in the midst of plans to cut its workforce by more than 80,000. More than 25% of the workforce is comprised of veterans. In our next story, you know her as a person who is supposed to help you live healthier, wealthier, and safer lives as an anchor and correspondent with the Today Show. But Vicky Nguyen is also now a New York Times best-selling author for her memoir, Boat Baby, detailing her family's escape from Vietnam. We caught up with her in the North Bay on her book tour.
I like to say this is a memoir. This is how I rememoir the events happening.
This isn't the anchor desk Vicky Nguyen is used to. She's at Corte Madeira's Book Passage on her book tour for her memoir, Boat Baby.
Absolutely been everything I could have hoped for and more.
This is Today.
This is where the magic happens. Time to get mic'd. Let's go.
A far cry from her day-to-day work as an NBC News anchor and correspondent, her memoir details her remarkable life starting at when she was just 8 months old. That's when her parents took a harrowing boat journey that some estimates total more than 2 million Vietnamese would make after the Fall of Saigon in April 1975. Vicky took her first steps at this refugee camp in Malaysia. That's where this photo on the cover of her book was taken. The rest of her stories spill out onto the pages from there.
I will say what surprises me is when I hear from so many people who have nothing to do with the Vietnamese American story. People who came from Italy or Cuba or Ireland, and they tell me about their parents or their grandparents and how they came here on a boat in a different way.
An American story.
Yeah, very much an American story.
Like many American stories, hers is complicated.
So yeah, it was messy. We went through a lot. There's unresolved issues now.
She shares the ups and downs of family life, how her parents nearly moved in with her while navigating financial trouble. Today, they actually do live with her in New York. The book dedicated to them and secondly to her 3 daughters.
How does that frame how you view your parents' journey now and what you were able to go through?
It gave me an even deeper appreciation and level of gratitude for the decisions they made, the risks they took, and the sacrifices that they have always made for me. The amount of hugs and I love yous that I hear my parents say to my daughters, it's like, who are these people? These people didn't raise me with these kinds of words of affection. But that's okay. They raised me as Vietnamese parents, and now they are Vietnamese American grandparents.
How are you keeping the Vietnamese culture relevant in your lives? What do you do to stay close and connected to that?
I'm grateful because my parents are there. So there's a direct connection that they get to hear the stories of my parents' upbringing. They get to eat Vietnamese food pretty much every day.
A life this boat baby says she could have never dreamed as the world remembers 50 years since a singular event that changed so many lives.
How are you reflecting on that date?
So I'm happy that we are commemorating this period in time, and I also hope it encourages people to reflect and look forward and understand what we can learn from the past.
In our final story, we look at how far Vietnamese Americans have come in the Bay Area when it comes to being decision makers in the community. Santa Clara County elected its first Vietnamese American and Asian woman supervisor last November. Betty Young is the daughter of Vietnamese refugees. She shares a defining feature of her upbringing and how she now uses her experiences when serving. While that's something to celebrate, it comes as the next generation of Vietnamese Americans wrestle with their own cultural challenges.
That we need to make sure you guys are taken care of.
In the halls of the Santa Clara County Government Center, you might run into Supervisor Betty Young talking to constituents. Sometimes giving directions in Vietnamese.
That moment when they swore me in right at that spot right there, my hands were shaking.
Young is the first Vietnamese American to hold a seat on the county board, one that represents more than 400,000 residents.
We are home to downtown, Japantown, Plata Arroyo, East Side, Mayfair, Little Portugal, Little Italy, Little Saigon. You'll get the best pho and tacos in this district, I'll guarantee you that. And it's also the district of highest need.
District 2 is also where Young was born.
I've lived in this district my whole life, and so my family came here in the late 70s, in 1979, to be specific, and they were clients of the county's refugee resettlement program. I know for my family, my mom, my dad, my aunts, my uncles, it's still very painful to talk about that.
Her family, refugees of the Vietnam War. That manifested in a specific way for Young and her siblings.
I love my county. But I'm gonna be very honest that it was a bumpy ride.
How so?
Well, language access was still not a thing, so that was very much a defining feature of my childhood. You end up negotiating in your interactions. You know, you realize like in this instance, I'm trying to achieve a desired outcome for my mom and dad, and I'm the key to it. And you know what? Like it took me a very long time to realize that that was a lot of pressure, and it was not possible for like a 12-year-old or a 14-year-old to help navigate that.
Today, loss of language has now become a defining challenge for some in the South Bay population.
We do work with a lot of folks from the elder generation who are very interested in passing on some of the different cultural traditions that are transmitted through language.
That's Vietnamese American Roundtable Executive Director Philip Nguyen, who met us at the edge of San Jose's History Park at the Viet Museum. Inside the space, so this is directions in which people took boats.
Right, yes.
A treasure trove of information, Nguyen says they now use as an educational stop for youth.
To learn a little bit about this exodus of boat people.
Nguyen says cultural preservation is one of the main focuses right now for their organization. They need to find ways to address what he calls intergenerational divisions around language, culture, identity, and history.
We see a lot of youth from high school students or college students come look for us to be a part of our youth programs or to volunteer with us for something like our Lunar New Year festivals that we do, seeking a way to connect and reconnect with their parents and this history that they feel like is slowly slipping away from their hands, especially as like the elder generations, the refugee immigrants that initially came here after the Fall of Saigon begin to pass on.
The caretakers of the old and the new, grappling with how the future looks, while Young hopes she can help shape it.
So yeah, this is my seat right here.
Now tasked with a huge responsibility.
For it to be on the 50th anniversary, it just adds this emotional layer.
For her Vietnamese community and hundreds of thousands of others.
I still catch myself in moments saying, oh my God, I'm in charge. We still have incoming refugees during this time. And even no matter what country they come from, I see family in them, and I am so grateful for where I am today, where I get to be an active part in building the world that I wish existed for us back then.
That does it for our NBC Bay Area special, hearing the stories about the diverse communities of people who move our Bay Area forward 50 years after the fall of Saigon. I'm Gia Vang. Thanks for joining us.